YouTube, hello and welcome back once again. It's been a while. We've been very busy, I think, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for them it's actually not a while because we skipped last week's upload. This week's actually happened. It's just that we uploaded the extra deck talk of should Baron de Fleur banned? Should Baron de Fleur be banned? It just has been uploaded a day after Baron de Fleur has been banned, so
you guys are gonna have a very jarring experience with the next episode because, yeah, like you said, we did the extra deck thing, but then we were busy, so we couldn't upload it in time, and now we're here doing the ban list reaction, which is very much indicative of a lot of the things we talked about last week, but we'll jump into that. And one thing as well that we were going to do compared to last week that we're now going to be doing now, we're going to first spend a couple of, 5-10 minutes at the start of every podcast just doing a little bit of yapping. Just catching up on the previous week and any kind of non-related discussions and dramas that I guess are going on in the community, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll jump into the topic. Of course, we'll start with probably Unlimited, but I guess for now, what's new with you, I guess?
I'm just laughing at someone in chat saying far from streaming from heaven. That caught me off guard. That was funny.
Yeah, so if you're curious as to what's going on with me, if you're probably listening to this on Spotify, so you have no idea what's happening. It is very overexposed here. I don't have curtains in my office yet. I've been waiting 3 weeks for them to install these blinds, whatever you call them, and it's taken a while. But it's a very clean setup. Please check out my Twitter. It's so nice. I spent 2 days with my dad putting together like a table, doing cable management. Oh my god, it is so freaking clean and therapeutic.
It is nice.
Would recommend.
It is nice. So
you got a cat. How's he?
I did get a cat.
How's his move?
Dude, he's awesome. He is very awesome. It's been going very well. I'm very happy.
What is he like? Is he like active? Is he kind of lazy or?
He's pretty active, I would say. He's also very trusting, which is very nice. Like he's been sleeping in our beds since the very first night and all that, which I don't think is that's always the case.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I just sleeping with your cat is incredible. Like waking up and just having like this big furry ball in your face and spinning, it's so good. It's so good.
To be fair, well, like waking up like 5 times a night, to be fair.
Oh, does he like want food and stuff, or like what's the
Yeah, sometimes he wants food, sometimes he just walks across our faces like for no reason, for no apparent reason.
you gotta make sure you get them into like a routine, so they know which hours they're eating. It's like a child, you can't just give them what they want all the time, right? You'll instill some bad habits.
Yeah, I'm very bad at that. I'm very bad at saying no when I notice he wants something, but yeah.
It's difficult, yeah. But yeah, pet is beautiful. It's great to have. Now, in terms of dramas and stuff, I suppose, one thing I noticed over the last couple of days was the insane reveal of the Tenpai, shall we say, like, the Konami reveal, I suppose. Just ask your friend for a Trident Dragon.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, I saw this on stream today. I think the video came out yesterday of like them like presenting the Tenpai archetype, and they're like, by the way, to unleash the full potential of this archetype, you're gonna need a copy of Trident Dragon. So you better check your collection if you have one.
Yeah, let me just see my collection. I mean, it's possible, but like, it's a 10-year-old card. That was the last time it was printed. It was 10 years ago, and there's only 2 printings.
There's the original printing from Raging Battle in Ultra and Ulti, and then it has a like Legendary Collection Secret Rare reprint, which is now approaching, I think, 80 or 90 or even $100, just for context. Which, by the way, I have one because Edison enjoyers stay winning. Because I picked it up for like some Edison deck like a months ago for like $5.
It's great, well done. Good for you.
Yes, thank you.
But also,
you can ask me for it if you don't find one in your collection.
You are my friend. Yeah, there you go. See, like
that's how it works.
That's exactly the strat they told us to do. So I think like the one like reason like people were really upset by it because I think their perspective, their logic was like, oh, we've had this discussion so many times, right? Like the one thing that's really cool in Yu-Gi-Oh is like, oh, like here's Book of Moon from like 15 years ago. That's relevant. Econ, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So that's like the cool thing about this game, right? Is like, here's this random card from like 10 years ago that's relevant. That is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
But not when it's like $110 for a light played card market version where you know it's been chewed up by like Jimmy's dog and stuff like that.
I thought if I want to be nice to them, I had one thought where I think there's a possibility that they meant well and just wanted to inform people that they are going to need Trident Dragon, and they thought it was going to be in time, because who knows when they wrote that script, right? Like maybe they wrote that thing 2 months ago or filmed it 2 months ago, and they were like, we're going to let people know Trident Dragon is important for this, just so they're not going to be too late to the party. Turns out the video came out very much too late to the party. So I don't know. I don't know if that's actually what they wanted to do with this. I don't know if they were trying to be nice, because I feel like if they're aware of the situation, I feel like that was impossible to not be like a meme instantly when they published the video. I feel like they must know what's gonna happen. But the main reason why I find it so funny is because it's like the perfect setup to like announce a reprint or something like that. They're like, you know, all the Tenpai cards are in this set. In order to use them, you're going to need a Trident Dragon. And so what I was expecting when I heard that sentence is like, so like, be on the lookout for, I don't know, OTS Pack 25, where you're going to be able to find an accessible copy or anything like that. But nope, it's just like, you better check your collection, whether you have one. Otherwise, you know.
Or ask your friend. Like the most insulting like suggestion. Friend? What do you mean friend? Like,
what is that?
I think we should start measuring like currency in Yu-Gi-Oh in terms of Flunder cores. So realistically, like you can probably like that's like 3 or 4 Flunder cores for one Trident Dragon, or one Trident Dragon and a Tenpai core is still like half or less than a quarter of the price of Snake Eye. So in terms of money wise, like you're still plussing pretty hard if you don't play Snake Eye this format.
It's crazy because Tenpai, after all this, even with the $80 Trident Dragon, might still be a budget deck, because I don't think so far out of all the rarities they've announced for the cards, like nothing is high rarity.
Oh,
deck
100%.
doesn't need SP Little Knight, because you know you're gonna just like battle phase kill them
pre-order
anyways.
Prices? I think it was like $60 pre-orders for a full Tenpai core. So $60 plus like 100, like that's like 150-ish dollars for a deck. That is cheap for Yu-Gi-Oh! Genuinely.
Which is honestly, like, they're kind of lucky that they're getting away like that. Like, because even without reprinting Trident Dragon, like, the deck is still going to be affordable, which is, like, keeping them from getting, like, I think even more of a backlash, I suppose, on not reprinting it. It definitely should have happened. It's probably going to happen. My prediction is it's going to happen, but it's going to happen way too late, as usual with these. Like, it'd be so hype to line these reprints up at the same time as these releases. It would make so much sense. Kind of like how the Kirin unban just happened, like, a couple... What is it, like just like barely too late for the Magispector release? Well, yeah.
Do you think it's going to be in Rarity Collection?
I mean, it could very well be. I'm not sure if the Rarity Collection 2 is just a... Are they copying OCG product again?
Do you have a prediction?
Sure. No, it's not going to be there.
Ah, damn. Okay, because I wanted to bet no. Oh, well.
Okay, I'm going to let him do first, but then I'm going to complain because he didn't pick what I wanted him to pick.
But it's really funny because, like you said, it was like the perfect moment and setup.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, here's Tenpai. You can get Trident Dragon in here or in the future set. But nope, it's like...
You can get Trident Dragon in your collection.
My collection. God. Yeah, so anyway, other than that... I suppose one other thing before we jump into the ban list that I thought was really funny. I want everyone to please note that our decision to postpone the effective from date for the new Forbidden Limited list in our region was to give players time to update their decks before the next major event, the French Open.
I mean, that's the biggest event we've had in Europe for a long time.
Dude, that's not why it's funny. They just ignored Rally.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in all fairness, though, I think it is... I do like their decision for that. I think...
Oh, yeah, obviously. It's just, like, I'm not complaining at all. Like, that is absolutely, like, the right play. It's just hilarious that the next major event is a French regional, not a YCS in Europe size. That's really funny.
I mean, yeah,
Like the burn.
it's just a matter of I think it's understandable that they don't want people to be in trouble to like get cards in time for a regional, when it's more reasonable to expect someone to like pick up cards for a YCS. And at the same time, I just think the YCS is going to be so much more hype and so much more viewed if it has the new ban list instead of the old one. Yeah.
Why is the American YCSs like are more frequent than EU regionals at this point? Like
Yeah.
it's insane. So you know,
I mean, Christian
like,
Urena has won more regionals this year than I have even attended regionals. So
you mean one more YCSs?
yeah, that's what I mean. What did I say?
Yeah, you said regionals, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
No.
shout outs to Christian Urena.
Yeah.
Holy crap. He's like he started a YouTube channel recently for anyone who wants some context, and he's been like
Yeah.
teaching people how to play what's it called?
Snake Eyes.
Yeah, like doing all like the very specific lines through X, one, Y, and Z hand trap, etc., etc. And he's like teaching people, giving people the resources, and still just winning the event against people who have probably watched his video. Like that is like the ultimate flex. I feel like very few people can be in that situation. I guess maybe you're one of them. Like, have you ever been in a situation where you've like dueled against someone who's like just straight net decking your deck from like the previous YCS?
Oh yeah, no, I've done that. That's happened. That's happened. Yeah, that's happened. That happened.
That's,
The last time that happened, I think, was with the. I mean, it happened with Runic Bestial, but it happened. I remember I distinctly happening it with the Beat Cop Mystic Mine sprite deck that I brought to Euros. Like, was it last 2 years ago? Yeah.
So I thought I went to a regional this weekend, just as another side point. I went to a regional this weekend, and round one at this regional, I thought exactly what you described was happening. My round one opponent at this regional was playing Burning Abyss, right? And I was like, oh, there's no way we got a fan here, dude. He's like he's got mana culture. He's playing BA at this regional. Do you know what the first card he activated was before I realized it was Burning Abyss? He activated pre-prep.
For Malakoda?
Yes.
That's bait. That's crazy. He net decked that from you. Why would you play? Why would you play Malakoda, Farfa?
He goes like pre-prep, so I ghost bell it, and I'm like, okay, Voiceless Voice, that's a good card to ghost bell. And then he just like summons Fiendish Rhino Warrior. I was like, what? It was really funny because he was like declaring all his card effects, like trying to like when the way when you duel against someone they like declare their card effects, but they declare it in a way where they're almost explaining what the card does.
Yeah.
I was like really insulted. I was like, brother, trust me, I know what Dante does.
I'm activating Seer to special summon one Burning Abyss monster from my graveyard.
Oh, it's so funny. You know what's funny? He was German, actually. Maybe you know him, Josh. Do you know any German BA players? I'm sure it narrows it down. There's only like 2 of them, probably, right?
Yeah, I don't tend to keep up with my Burning Abyss players.
You don't keep up with the German BA fan base? Okay.
Yeah, not really.
Well, that's on you, honestly. All right. Anyway, let's get into our ban list discussion. I suppose there's a lot to go through. Do we just go? Do we go like deck by deck, or do we go like just hit by hit? I think is maybe the easiest way to do it.
I'd suggest we talk through the hits individually, what we think of them, and then maybe once we're done with that, we talk about like what we think is impacted by this, which decks are going to benefit from it, which decks won't, which decks we like to play now, or whatever. That kind of stuff.
I think it's so strange that you actually went with the bans first. I like to do it in reverse order because
I mean, I don't mind.
Like...
I have the technology for.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's manipulate the technology. Let's go reverse order because like people want to focus on the what's it called first. All right. So let's begin with the unlimiteds. I think most of these are not like so. Harp Horror and Terratop, I think, were unsurprising. Those are very good predictions because they went to 1 and 2 respectively last list. So that wasn't like the biggest shocker, right? I mean, it's not really much to comment about that, I suppose. Terratop at 3, I suppose, is interesting because every deck theoretically has access to a negate without their normal summon now.
Yes.
But
which one are you referring to? Like
Gossip Shadow, like you could just throw Terratop.
Gossip Shadow to like play around like Nibiru and stuff like that. Because I was thinking Totem Bird, but that's just spell traps, right?
That you could do that as well in theory, like every deck could just do something like that if you really wanted to, which I guess is kind of neat, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like I'm a little biased because I hate cards that make you play a brick, which is like Teketenborg, right? I've always hated cards that make me like Terratop's a good card. I hate when those kind of cards are are being played though, because I always feel like I don't want to introduce the variants into my deck of drawing a Tekettenborg every once in a while. That just annoys me, but yeah.
Yeah, potentially. I guess I understand. But, for anyone who's playing a bunch of 3-axis decks, maybe if you're still playing around with Gold Pride and Punk and stuff like that, I think Terratop, you could probably throw this in there as like some good 3 extenders and stuff like that.
I
That's
think
kinda
Goblin
cool,
Bikers plays it too.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's actually really, I think MBT won like a locals or something last week. He like posted about it on Twitter. That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah. But what I like about these unlimits is that partially, not all of them, like I would say Harpor and Terratop, like you said, are not the most relevant ones. They certainly could see play at some point, but the other half is just cards that are definitely, or not definitely, but they have some potential. Like Malicious and Engage, I think, are cards that where the unlimit is actually relevant. I mean, specifically Malicious is like a card that has been going back and forth between 2 and 3 copies forever. And its power is just like so much stronger, so much higher if you just have an extra copy.
I sincerely hope, first of all, that they put it back to 2 on the next list just to make this like a habit of sorts. But yeah, no, for any sort of link kind of climbing and combo deck, like this really good because that extra body, you really notice it. And I think just before the stream started, you were playing around with some Tearlament, and I don't know. Did you feel that were you playing 3, or was it just enough?
I was playing 3. Yeah, I was playing 3, and there was a couple hands where I was just testing some hands on stream, and it was like I was going through the motions, and then sometimes I noticed like, oh wait, I have an extra Malicious that I didn't expect to be there because it's just like I did the one thing with the Malicious. I was happy with that, made my Beatrice. And then I realized, wait, I can just do that again, and it's pretty neat. I mean, I don't know. I think the main reason,
with it though, right?
That's the thing. I think the main reason why they are willing to give us the third Malicious now, and also I guess that's a spoiler, but the Armageddonite kind of ties in with that as well. That's gone to 2 is like because I sold this band, there's just nothing too crazy that a Malicious can do. That you like. Yeah, I think it's fine. I overall, I'm fine with it. I don't think Malicious 2-3 at the moment is that crazy of a decision. I think it's fine.
Maybe some experts in chat can like chime in on this, but I really don't think Malicious 2-3 even does anything for Hero specifically. Even though it's a hero card, I feel like this just does way more for other decks more than it does heroes. I mean, what are you doing with another body, right? I don't know.
That is what I heard. I'm not a hero expert, but I heard that they probably play it. And it does help, but I don't think it's like the biggest deal in the world. I don't think it solves any of the problems that it has.
Let's go get nibbed harder. Okay, sure. Someone VIP that guy. Anyway, oh my god, I love Ray. Yes, I would die for Sky Striker Ace Ray. Engage to 3. What was it before? 2? I can't keep track.
It was 2. Yeah, it was 2.
So Kagari's at 3, and that's it, right? The deck's at full power.
Outside of Hornet Drones, I don't think there's a card of the Sky Striker card on the ban list anymore.
That's interesting. It's just more consistent. Like the difference between like 0 and 1 is huge. 1 to 2 is also pretty big, but I feel like 2 to 3. It's diminishing returns, isn't it? Right? I don't think there's that big of a difference.
I mean, diminishing returns is like I think it is a big deal, because it changes around the ratios on specifically the Sky Striker like engine in other decks. That's what I've been playing around with at one of my regionals recently. I was going to it with like
So you're saying it's like bigger for non-striker decks, weirdly enough.
100%. Like the thing is, pure Sky Striker, literally, I don't think is going to be able to actually compete. The deck is just outdated. No, the deck is outdated. Do you think you're acting like this is some nuclear take?
No, I agree with you. You're betraying a lot of people right now by making this statement.
No, I've said this before. I don't think pure Sky Striker or like compete at the high level, I suppose. Like I'm sure you can bring Sky Strikers to locals and do fine now. That's fair enough. Maybe I phrased it too like harshly, but I at like competitive level, you're making me go back on my take. I hate that you're laughing at me no matter what I'm saying. What is this about?
I think you've established yourself as the striker content creator now, so it's like you have a bit of a flag to carry on your back here.
I feel I'm no way I don't feel obligated to do that. I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna say it the way it is. I think Sky Striker as an engine has become very strong because the ratio is now very
Yeah.
very nice. You know, being able to play triple engage with a couple of nice targets in any deck that plays a lot of spell cards is really cool. I don't think it changes too much about the power level of pure Sky Striker, because that deck is just like kind of outdated. Because like in 2019 or 2018 when it came out, it was like the king of grind games. But these days, like any modern Yu-Gi-Oh deck has crazy grind game over like multiple turns, and Sky Striker doesn't even keep up with that. And therefore, I don't think it's that great. But I think hybrid versions in other decks could definitely see a huge benefit from triple engage.
Yeah, you say that now until someone like Ryan Yu or the Australian guy whose name I forgot just end up winning a YCS like for no reason with it. So
yeah, that was a Sky Striker engine in Mystic Mine.
True. Yeah, that was exactly how that was with your Hayate beat stick. True. For other unlimits and stuff like that, are you surprised that we didn't get any dangers back? I was really looking forward to Jackalope or Tsuchinoko coming back potentially.
I wouldn't have minded that. I think we talked about that during our banlist prediction one. I would have been fine with it. I'm not surprised that they're not doing it. I think there's still a little bit of fear left in them after what they did to us with dangers at release. And I think
well,
they
there's
just
a lot
want to
to
be
talk
careful
about with regards to dangers, because there's a couple of very important cards that have been banned, which I suppose constitute the end board issue, which we'll talk about when we get there. But maybe that's semi sort of tied in there, which is weird because like that's why I thought, well, if they're gonna ban all those cards, maybe we could bring back some dangers, but I guess not.
I think they want to go step by step. I think they want to go step by step with that. But yeah.
Do you have any other unlimits or something on mind?
I don't think, like, I'm always way more like in anticipation of the stuff that goes onto the list. In this one in particular, I was asking for Engage to be unlimited. The other ones I feel kind of about. I don't know if there's anything that I really wanted back to 3 in particular. I'd have to
Infernity
think about
Launcher?
That. I mean, there's hardly anything to gain from that. Either it's irrelevant or it's kind of like a menace to play against, so probably not.
Okay, I mean, you get to search another
Charvara is a good point. I wanted Charvara.
Yes. Yeah. God, I haven't played Mastodon in like a couple of weeks with the move and stuff, but yeah, I enjoy that deck so much. You know what's funny? I'm just gonna mention. I don't want to go on a tangent again, but at my regional, I think it was like round 3 or something. I played against Unchained, and I had like hand trapped him twice. Right? Like he goes like I like negate his like tour guide, and then I ashed the effect of the trap to summon from deck. And I was just sitting there, like, thinking to myself, like, in, like, one of the other games where I hand-trapped him twice again, I was just sitting there thinking to myself, if he drew Charvara at any one of these points, he was playing through 3 hand traps.
Yeah.
But, hey, they limited it, so, you know.
It's particularly sad because of some other changes that happened on this ban list, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I think with multiple Charvaras, Unchained could have actually, like, been a viable deck again.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's disappointing. Maybe it's just like out with the old, in with the new, right? There's no reason, like, but surely we'd be seeing some Unchained cards in like the tins maybe this year. No,
I guess, yeah, but it's nothing like super sought after, I guess. But like, it's a trend for sure that like they keep unbanning stuff a little bit too late because they don't actually want you to go back to the old stuff. They want you to pick up the new decks, right? And so they tend to, like they did with Orcust and also Sky Striker and some other stuff, they give you these cards back when it's slightly too late for them to actually be good again, right? And so I'm thinking like we probably get Charvara at some point when it's just going to end up being like, I don't know, tier 2 or tier 3 at some point.
Have you seen any like discourse about this card on Twitter recently? Because I've been seeing a lot of people mad about this, saying like Charvara is like, someone in chat mentioned, is like a lazy cross-out target. It's like bad design because it just like deletes things like Valor Imper. I just want to say like unequivocally, that is a garbage take in my opinion. Cards like that are very cool. In-engine ways to dodge and play through hand traps, I think, are some of the most fun types of Yu-Gi-Oh! I love Charvara for those reasons. I don't know how you feel about it, but I freaking love that card.
Oh my god, I love Charvara.
Yeah, I'm bat chesting for Charvara now.
No, I think Sharvara is cool. I think Sharvara is cool. I don't think the dodging hand traps is the coolest part about it, but I just think Unchained is cool, and the fact that it doesn't work without multiple Sharvaras is annoying. Or like it does work to an extent, but the fact that it's not good enough anymore without 3 Sharvaras is sad to me.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like about Linkuriboh. Like, I like that it does that. I think the biggest issue with Linkuriboh is that it just puts a body in your graveyard for free, and also gives you like a pretty strong like bonus effect, which obviously we'll talk about soon. But I think like cards like that are generally quite healthy because I feel like they do offer a lot of skill expression. Because you'd be surprised just how many times people can just straight up forget, like, oh yeah, damn, I can get Linkuriboh, or he has Sharvara that I have to think about, etc. Right? I think that's pretty cool design in my opinion, but. Shall we move on to semi-limits?
Yes.
All right. You want to take the lead on Pearly here?
Yeah, I mean, we've already kind of talked about Armageddon, but Pearly Delicious Memory is the other one, and that one is actually quite big. And this is kind of like an example of the opposite of what I just described. This one I don't think is too late to be relevant. They are reverting on these Pearly hits. The way I feel about it, it's relatively fast. This feels like it just happened at some point. It must have been at some point last year, right? Towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and they did the same in Macedon, where like they hit like, I think it was like Sleepy or Pretty, and then they like brought something back or something. I don't know. They seem to be very focused on keeping Pearly alive, but not Unchained.
I'm not sure what the reason for that is, because there's nothing like coming out for Pearly, nothing new that they want to like sell as far as I'm aware of. Like this is just a matter of we're reverting
just
this
straight up bias.
Yeah, really, really fast. Like the same, they did this with Sprite as well, right? The starter was on here at some point and got like unlimited the next one again. Rarity Collection 2 has
people are mentioning.
Yeah, people in chat are saying Rarity Collection 2 has Pearly cards. Maybe that is genuinely the reason. It could be. Either way, I don't mind it. I think Pearly's been virtually non-existent for the last couple weeks or months. And outside of the fact that Pearly makes a Towers monster, which I think is cringe, I actually do kind of think the deck plays quite... Like, it's a cool deck, I think, outside of its win condition.
You say irrelevant, and here we have poor Dinkang Pham in shambles, dude. That guy's been, like, traveling around the entirety of Europe just to play Pearly, so... Like
I said what I said.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, not really much to talk about there. I guess we've mentioned like this kind of stuff multiple times with all the different hits and returns that Pearly has had. Armageddon Knight. I mean, foolish burial for a dark monster, eh? What's that about?
It's about 16 years old.
It's just weird though. It's like one of those cards that can just never be power crept, right? Because the more dark monsters that are printed, the more potential this has to be really sick, right?
I would argue it has been power crept because we have definitely... I mean, the card is still as good as ever, but like we have definitely kind of updated... I'm not sure what the right word is, but like the standard for what a normal summon can do these days is definitely way past anything that Armageddon Knight does, I feel like, is the way I would phrase it.
I think it's like the ability to have an open-ended card that basically, if there ever exists a dark monster with a really crazy like double grave effect, maybe like a trigger and then also an ignition effect, like this card just becomes crazy, right? Depending on, you know, again, it's like it's one of those like weird like design directions that they would sort of have to like print around, I guess, right? Like look at, you know, for example, like machine duplication, like cards like that, they are just always open-ended enough to the point where they can just be absurd or terrible depending on what cards are available in the pool. So one of the biggest things that people were mentioning is Izolde's ban, so I guess that is like the least relevant part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right in the sense that they have to still keep this card in mind when they design further cards, because it's one of those cards that certainly isn't outdated in the sense that it's never going to be good enough again. I could definitely see a world where they make a deck where this card still is like crazy, if they're not careful. I think as of now, though, with the existing card pool, I don't think it's ever going to be a problem. Like, sure, you can send like what like you're going to send your Orcust Harp Horror with this, or like your Malicious that you now got all back to unlimited. All of that is completely fine if you're comparing that to all the other stuff that one card can do in this modern game.
Is that like the best deck for Arma right now? Is that really like the best thing you can do with an Armageddon Knight?
I wouldn't know where else to really put it. I like, the thing is that most decks that have graveyard effects like that have their own version of this, right? Like, you wouldn't play this in Tearlaments because it has Reinhardt. You wouldn't play this in Phantom Knights because they have their own guy that does that. You wouldn't play this in whichever deck you can think of that has a lot of graveyard stuff going on because they probably have it.
Yeah, or FTK with 10 bricks, because that's always like the direction.
I mean, that's been possible for the last 10 years or something, and it's never been relevant. So I refuse to.
At any one point.
Yeah.
Semi-limits that haven't happened. Can't really think of anything, right? Semi-limit is like a weird number, isn't it? Because like,
I hardly ever have a card that I want to be semi-limited. It always feels like a compromise where like they want to hit a card but they don't want to hit it too hard, or they want to bring back a card but they are not quite sure if it can go back to 3. It never feels like the optimal place for a card to stay, outside of very few examples like Malicious. But the there's nothing missing here. I feel like in terms of this, there's nothing I was like, I wish that was semi-limited.
One thing I'm seeing as a very clear like divide that still exists between OCG and TCG is like OCG are very willing to just throw anything into semi-limited if it just seems like vaguely good, right? Like any kind of generic 3 of like, just put all the pots at 2, etc., right? And like TCG still like essentially just hard reserves the semi-limited list as like almost like a quarantine zone, like they did with Terror Top and well, I guess now Armageddon Knight. Yeah. And then I wouldn't be shocked at all if these cards just got bumped up to 3 in the future, right? So, but in terms of just like generic stuff to put on semi-limited, there is a clear divide between TCG and OCG. Which to note as well, I would like to say, I think it's pretty interesting that we don't get more quarantine hits like that. I think it would have been unsurprising, for example, if they put all of like the flood. I'm happy they put all the floodgates straight to 1, but they could have, in theory, put them to 2. D-Shifter is a good one that can maybe go to like 2, right? Yep. But they just choose to not do it. So I don't know. I guess like there seems to be a very strict difference between the semi-limited philosophy in the regions.
Yeah, it feels like the OCG does a lot of their hits based on like pure like statistics. You know, like Shifter is if you put Shifter from 3 to 2, it's like it's just gonna happen less often, and that's a good thing in their eyes. You know, whereas like we often, or like the way we argue about cards is more often like, why would you semi-limit a card? Because it's either okay or not okay for this card to resolve, right? This how I guess at least how I argue a lot of the times when people mention like I would semi-limit Dimension Shifter, and I'd be like, I don't think that solves the problem, because if Dimension Shifter is too powerful, it probably shouldn't be in the game at all. It shouldn't really be at 2. At the same time, I would still rather have a semi-limited Dimension Shifter than a Dimension Shifter that is at 3. You know, so in some ways, I kind of prefer that the OCG is more willing to put some cards on there. And I feel like we don't get that very often, simply because they seem to share that logic of like, hey, this card is either fine or it's not fine, so there's not really a reason to put it to 2.
Do you know how many cards are semi-limited in TCG before this ban list?
I would only have to guess, but I think it's definitely less than 10, right?
Oh, it's way less than 10. So before this ban list, there are 4 semi-limits in TCG. Yeah. In OCG, there are 20, just to give you an idea of the difference in how they view semi-limited cards. So that's...
But shouldn't it still be 4 now?
Well, now it's 6.
No, they moved Engage and Mali away, didn't they?
So you got Fountain, Memory, Delicious, Lightning Storm, Pank, and Armageddon Knight. Oh, right. So previously... Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. But yeah, in total, now there's 6. Which is...
it was 6 then?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So way less than OCG, less than half of what they have, which is a lot. Like, yeah,
it's definitely a huge. There has to be a different philosophy there. Yeah, like you don't just have someone randomly have 20 cards on there and we just have 6. There's definitely someone or a group of people either in the OCG or in the TCG who are either heavily against semi-limiting or heavily pro semi-limiting in the OCG case, right?
Yeah. Apparently there's 39 in Mastodon. There's no shot.
That could be the case. That the way, I mean, they semi-limit everything, even if you only play one copy, it doesn't even matter. Like the Master Duel ban list is a mystery to me.
Okay, I just fact checked it. I think it's 36 or 37.
It's
36. There are 36 semi limits in Master Duel.
Yeah. The Master Duel ban list is actually made by an AI, I think, but not a very intelligent one.
It's easier because like you can actually get the raw statistics, whereas it's harder in OCG and TCG unless you're like, well, I don't know. It depends like if they're inputting the data from every single local event in OCG or something. But in Master Duel, it's easier because everything is online, so you just take the take the what's it called? That's actually really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually just an A. It's not an AI because it's got nothing to do with intelligence. Yeah.
This is the bot randomizing cards. Diameter, am I right?
Diameter to 1, dude. Yep. Thankfully.
All right, let's talk about the limited cards. What do you want to start with? There's a lot of things I'm excited for on this
one. Let's start with the good news.
What's the good news in your opinion? Hang on, let me look at this and let me try and think what the good news is.
There's no way you don't
Josh.
know what the good news are.
Well, from a Josh good news, I want to say like is maybe anti-spell to 1 is a Josh good news.
That's by far the best news, yes.
Okay, do you know what my best news is from this one?
I'm afraid I couldn't even fathom what you're about to utter.
Come on, what's my good news?
Your good news is probably Colossus or Kirin.
No, what the heck? Are you trolling?
See, you're unpredictable Kirin, to me. What is it?
It's Kirin.
Okay, I said Colossus or Kirin.
Okay, I mean, well, Colossus, come on, like, what the hell?
You would have been happy if this said Block Dragon, so don't laugh
at me.
Okay,
have you seen the bans, Josh? Tell me what Block Dragon does today.
Nothing, because it's banned, thankfully.
Okay, but like, anyway, we'll have that discussion soon. But anyway, anti-spell fragrance has been limited, going into the theme and the direction that we've had over the last couple of ban lists, where they limit all of these floodgates. Tikaboo, Rivalry, Gozen are all at 1 now. There's probably some others as well, and now we've also got anti-spell.
And that is honestly my favorite part about recent ban lists, is that they finally seem to follow the philosophy that cards that make your opponent unable to play the game are not good for the game. And that is absolutely true, and I'm really, really happy that they're doing it. Now, some people have been voicing concerns to me that there is simply other cards that are going to replace these cards that people can cite for going first. Like, people have been mentioning, like, I don't know, Deck Lockdown, Dimensional Barrier, whatever other thing that there is. Similar to how cards like Summon Limit and Anti-Spell have replaced maybe other choices like Gozen, Rivalry, and Tikaboo. To which I say that is true. However, those cards have been, like, people have played Summon Limit over those cards for a very good reason, right? Because it was even stronger and even more restrictive and even more degenerate, and so they wanted to play that card all the time. And so basically swapping it for a weaker version of a Floodgate is already a win. But even if that ends up being a problem, then I'm sure, or I'm hopeful, that they will just continue doing that until there are actually no crazy alternatives left that you can just slap in, go in first, and win every time with them.
I don't know if I like completely agree with you that, I mean, obviously, yeah, they are like better for a reason, and people have been playing some of them over the others for that reason, but I think there's almost always just as many equally degenerate, horrible cards you can just play. Like Deck Lockdown, I think, is a very good example, right? Like if you side that in your deck for going first, against some decks, it does essentially just feel like you're getting Summon Limited, right? Depending on what you're playing.
Yes.
But as you said, hopefully when it comes to that in the future, they will just do exactly what they've been doing and hopefully keep up the pattern. So
yeah, because like what is that argument? It's like, yeah, this card is unhealthy, but there might be a replacement for it, so we're just not gonna touch it. That's like, that doesn't make any sense. Then you just have to hit the alternative as well. Like, what?
Yeah. When do you think Shifter is gonna get hit? Like, genuinely, because do you think they will hit that, or do they just gonna leave it around? Like, is that like our Maxi or something?
You see, this ban list is giving me mixed signals. Some of the last ones, they're giving me mixed signals. Because like some of these changes have been so incredibly based, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, it really feels like ever since they've started like banning floodgates and all that, and with some other things that they've just banned, I feel like there has to have been a change in approach to the ban list, and it's one that, I mean, it's definitely subjective rather, and it's like I share that approach. I agree with those things, so I'm very hopeful. But then some decisions just make me scratch my head, like not touching Shifter at all, because I feel like if you're following the logic of like we're gonna get rid of some of these cards that make one person unable to play the game, I feel like Shifter is right up there on that list, maybe even before Summon Limit, and some other floodgates that they have touched, even like the last list, right? And so that confuses me. At the same time, some other of these limits confuse me, like Protoss and Colossus, when like, how do you put Anti-Spell and Summon Limit on one ban list and then release them at the same time? So I'm getting mixed signals. I don't know. It's weird in that regard. So I have no idea. It's hard to predict on what I would have said they would have banned Shifter. I predicted them to ban Shifter on this ban list, but they didn't. So I'm confused.
Well, sticking with the discussion of those two cards you just mentioned here, and yeah, very good points about Shifter specifically. In my opinion, I do kind of see it as like the anti-meta card that Maxi kind of is in OCG, is like the card that's supposed to keep some TCG combo decks in check, I suppose is kind of how I see it. But it's just weird because it's like also so many decks that Shifter destroys. Rogue and meta. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about Colossus. I think that Colossus is very specific. It's a very specific card, right? Like, this is not really a splashable engine. I don't really think like Cupid Pitch get the Thunder is like that commonplace, right? I don't think people are gonna start doing that. I don't think there's any like decks that can just throw that in. And when you have such a very specific deck, I think maybe it's fine in a way. I do hate the fact that it's like a really powerful floodgate, but I don't think we're really going to be seeing this that often.
I tend to agree. I think that this is the case both. I think Colossus and Protoss should just be talked about at the same time, even though Protoss does apply to specifically Sword Soul as well. Colossus specifically applies to Thunder Dragon, and then there's some generic combos which can get either of these out. People have been theorizing these lines. People have been asking me on stream what I think of these lines. So far, I think all of that stuff is very, very gimmicky, and I don't think it is going to see competitive play. However, just the fact that there is a small chance that it could at some point, I am not a fan of. I think both of these cards are, once again, similar to what I said earlier. There's two possible outcomes here. Either we won't see them ever, at which point then you could argue they shouldn't be on the ban list, but at the same time, is it worth taking the risk? Because if they do see play, it's going to be very frustrating. It's kind of like how cards like Anti-Spell and Summon Limit also had their formats where they didn't show up at all because they happened to not be that great, but then they have a chance of phasing in and out of the metagame, and whenever they join a format and whenever they see play, it's very, very annoying. And I think Colossus and Protoss are kind of in the same camp.
I suppose like the only thing that I'm particularly worried about is maybe if there's like some sort of, like in-engine way that a good meta deck can take advantage of either Protoss or Colossus, right? I think is like the only scary thing. Because when you remember back in 2019, like you would have like the crazy danger dragon deck, essentially. Like you were playing like Snow and all kinds of ridiculous stuff, and then you also throw Colossus into the mix that was just very easy to get to because, Snow can just banish any Thunder Dragon. That's what I'm like most worried about, is like if there's consistent ways to get to either of these, which is either through like Cupid Pitch or like, I don't know, hard drawing Nemesis Flag or something.
It's funny because both of these are enabled by some Nemesis card. Like for Colossus, it's Nemesis Corridor or whatever it's called, and for Protoss is Nemesis Flag, which is a pyro, so you can add it with the rank 4 fire Banshee that searches pyros or
that
bonfire.
Was the one, the generic 4 that
exactly.
Can search
so like there's lines where you need but they all require a banished monster, so you would have to be playing a deck that can make a rank 4 and banish one of their own cards so that you can summon that just to get to Protoss, and then you also need that deck to put 3 different, what is it, attributes or types? For Protoss is types, right?
Yeah.
No, attributes.
No, attributes. Protoss attributes.
Types is the one that's been legal this entire time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need a deck that can make a rank 4, banish a card, and set up different attributes in the graveyard. So it's not a given that you can do it. So Personally, I'm not that scared of these cards. My prediction is that they're not going to be that relevant. Maybe every once in a while someone is going to play a combo deck that plays them and could have some success with them, but overall I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, so I can't really argue with the limits from that perspective. At the same time, I would have preferred if it just didn't happen.
We'll see if you eat your words at some point, because that's always what happens, isn't it? You talk about like gimmicky combos, and then it's like the one guy at the regionals playing like the gimmick that he opens against.
I'll probably lose to it at German nationals. Like someone's gonna set up Colossus and Protoss.
Both of them, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I really want to talk about title. I feel like we've discussed this multiple times in multiple different podcasts with regards to like Masado and stuff. Like we've said everything. Like TLDR, these cards have done nothing in Masado, which is like the best format for them because they have Auradon, they have Tomahawk. We don't have that in TCG. We're not going to be seeing anything of the likes here. Is Redox still banned, right, in TCG?
It might very well be. I'm at this point between OCG Massadul and TCG doing all kinds of different things with the Dragon Rulers. I have no idea which Dragon Ruler is at what. If any one of them is at less than 3, then it's not enough. They should all be unlimited, and even then they won't do anything. And if Dragon Rulers ever do anything in Yu-Gi-Oh again, it's probably good. Because they're very like, for modern standards, these cards are very slow and grindy, which is crazy if you've played in 2013. But these cards are like, if these ever see like actual Dragon Ruler decks, if that's actually a thing, I think we would be in a very healthy spot. So I want these cards unlimited, but I'm afraid even that wouldn't help them at all.
Chicken Game to 1 is an interesting one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a world where you just play Chicken Game in any deck that just has a field spell?
I mean, you'd have to have more than that, right? I think this card is at 1 probably completely fine. I think this whole thinning your deck aspect, I think we've established that that's fine with Upstart going to 3 and not really seeing any play. I think
that's the issue, right? Because it's like, if you aren't already playing Upstart, why would you then resort to Chicken Game? Unless you have a very specific gimmick in mind.
I've heard some people mention like, okay, Gold Pride has an easy way to pay 1,000, and they also might want to play like Upstart, in which case it's fine. But is that really a problem? I don't think so. I think Chicken Game, when I'm thinking of potential uses for Chicken Game, all of it is pretty cool to me. Like you can play it as a secondary target in case you draw Terraforming plus the field spell you were going to play. So you have a use for the Terraforming. I think that's fine. You can do some Ancient Fairy combos where if you have your field spell, you can pop it and search a Chicken Game to draw a card. I think that's fine. I don't think that's problematic at all. All of the uses that I can think of for Chicken Game are fine. People are mentioning like, okay, you can now play set rotation in like any deck, but then you give your opponent a Chicken Game, which lets them draw a card, which helps them break your board. But in return, it basically locks out their imperm, right? For example, or evenly. I think that's fine. I think Chicken Game is cool.
I think one of the biggest worries for me is like, when you put Chicken Game to 1, you now have 4 copies. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Coupled with Upstart, and just like other generic like draw cards, like there comes a point where you reach like this weird critical mass of like potentially annoying like FTKs and gimmicks, which it's the logic is in the word gimmick. But you never know, right? Like when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh and consistent FTKs and really dumb strategies. So it is strange because I think like there is a huge difference from 0 to 1 Chicken Game compared to like 1 to 3 with things like pseudo space and terraforming being able to get you more deck thinning and more searching and more drawing into more really stupid combos. But I don't know. It's probably not gonna happen. But it's also just kind of like, what is like when I look at a card like on a ban list, right? I really kind of sometimes ask myself is like, okay, sure, this card probably could come back, but what is the benefit? Like, who's gaining anything from it, right? Because I feel like it's one of those things that can always just there's only ever a net negative for a card like Chicken Game coming back, in my opinion.
I would agree. Maybe if you set that from like Chicken Game going from 1 to 3, I think from 0 to 1, I think there's a lot of cool uses for Chicken Game without the ability to completely abuse it, because you're not going to be able to spam like pseudo spaces and all that with just one chicken game, right? You can't.
Mhm.
It basically enables you to use like terraforming with a second target, set rotation with another field spell if your deck only has one. Naturally, you can play Ancient Fairy, which has been errata to not be able to search the same field spell again, right? And so you
Mhm.
need to play a second field spell if you want to use that. All of that doesn't strike me as super dangerous. I'd agree if they now went ahead and said like, okay, we're gonna unlimit chicken game and terraforming and all that, and I'd be like, okay, well, hold on a second. Now you can like super consistently play like 3 upstart, 3 chicken game, 3 pseudo space, 3 terraforming, all that. I don't think that's the case with just one chicken game, and that's why I think one is kind of like the sweet spot for me. That's why I kind of like it without it being too dangerous. I think it's hard to imagine one chicken game being the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Ancient Fairy Dragon, I suppose, is always like one of the silliest ways to abuse field spells and stuff. We'll see. But
yeah, I mean,
you
but
know,
like
I just think
I
like
think
generically. Go on.
I think there's just more broken thing you can actually do with if you want to abuse Ancient Fairy Dragon, right? It's not to
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pop my whatever it is to search a chicken game to draw a random card of my deck, because like you can do stuff like search Secret Village, search
Well, I think it's
Necro
mostly the other way
Valley.
around, right? Like, here's a way to deck thin, get to those combos faster, then use
Mhm.
your
Okay,
use your
yeah, but
Ancient Fairy to pop the chicken game and do other stupid stuff.
okay, but relying on that, I mean, you would require you to draw your one chicken game for that.
Yeah, I
Right?
guess so. Sure. Or terraforming, right? Or
Yeah.
I guess that would get you the future. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Let's move on from chicken game.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So, someone came out of retirement and hibernation after 4 months to post his first video of the year with the return of Karen back to 1. Holy, that is that's a throwback. It feels like almost at this point. Magispector Karen is now limited from ban. That is pretty big, I think, for Pendulum decks, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, going from 0 to 4 copies is pretty strong, right? Like having an undestructible compulse every turn. It's a strong card. It's a good card.
Yes. I mean, I think it's the biggest deal is for pure Magispectors. And even there, it doesn't even feel like that big of a deal. I don't know. I hate to say it, but I don't
Whoa.
think this matters as much. I'm happy it's
No,
limited.
this is very, very big for Magispectors. Being able to like consistently tutor this from the deck with the new Xyz monster is like it is very, very relevant. Now the question is it relevant enough to become a meta threat? Probably not.
I guess
but
that's
it
what
is
I'm
like
referring
a
to.
huge
Yeah.
boost.
Yeah, I guess I refer to it as like it's probably relevant for the deck, but if it doesn't make the deck viable on a competitive level, is it really that relevant after all?
But that's the thing. We'll have to wait and see, right? Like
Yeah.
it's strange because
Mhm.
as someone who's like dabbled in Magispector, I really do love the deck and enjoy it. It's one of the few Pendulum decks that can play a lot of non-engine, right? Because of the new Link 2 monster, and Bumbuku being a plus, it's like one of the few Pendulum decks that you don't need 5 pen cards in your hand
Mhm.
to get anything going.
Yeah.
You can actually just do like big combos with basically like Bumbuku and like another guy, like just gets you into Neo, and like you can kind of do a lot just with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, for Magispector specifically, this is like a massive, massive thing. But you know, again, that is the big question: is that enough to propel Magispector into being a meta deck from essentially a decent rogue deck right now?
Yeah. I'm afraid the answer to that is probably going to be no, because I still feel like the Link 2 being like the biggest hand trap Magneton archetype has ever seen, because like literally the entire deck is untargetable except for your main choke point, which I feel like just has to be a design flaw. I feel like it has to be mentioned. Like you make the entire deck untargetable except for the most powerful card. Okay.
That is so strange.
But
So people are mentioning like the Link 2 locks you to Magispector. Have you guys forgotten Kirin is a Magispector? Like it isn't just like pendulum cards. Like okay. Anyway,
what I thought was
I got
more
one guide.
interesting of like out of the things you said is that this helps Pendulum in general. Do you think like Pendulum decks, like the slub of
Nah.
that is like Pendulum combo, right? Does that play Kirin anymore?
I mean, who knows what a pendulum like pile looks like anymore, right? I think you really
Yeah.
do need Electromite for this to like
Yeah.
gain a lot more value. And it's like, what is the normal summon in pendulum decks these days? You know, I think it still is Joker. So maybe you play like 3 Joker, 3 Bunbuku.
The best
and
one's
play,
probably
like, a 50
Snake Eye
card pile.
Ash.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Well, Snake Eye Ash
Someone
probably
suggesting you
if
can play
there's probably
Magician
a level
Souls and
1
10
fire.
Kirin.
There's probably a level 1 fire pendulum, so Snake Eye Ash probably makes a 1 card beyond the pendulum. It's probably the best thing you can do.
Unironically, yep. Why not? What do you think like of Kirin's power level? Obviously, like just as an individual card, do we think like it's that strong anymore? I think it's still like a relatively powerful card, like all things considered.
I think it is powerful. However, it's gone from like when Kirin was around for the first time and meta relevant in like 2016. This idea that once you had a Kirin, you would get that bounce every turn. That was kind of ahead of its time. That was kind of crazy in 2016. I think in 2024, that's kind of like a given. That once you get going with certain engines and certain cards, you just you can repeat it every turn. I think that's like normal these days. So I think that's not a problem anymore for Kirin. That's more like, that feels like nowadays, that feels more like a requirement for a card to actually be good, right? And so Kirin fulfills like the bare minimum to be even considered a good card in 2024. And in other, like, I think a bounce out of all things is like a fine way of interacting with the opponent. So I'm fine with it.
I think one of the most annoying things about Kirin was like, obviously, yes, it has a very strong effect, but it's also untargetable, indestructible. I think is like what really propelled it ahead of its time was like, it was very hard to deal with, right? Okay, you have a Kirin, I want to play, but it's very well protected.
Burning Abyss player out one Kirin challenge.
Literally. I remember like when Magispector came out, my friend built the deck at locals and we sat and play tested in 2016. And I was just sitting there with all of my targeting trap cards, like staring on a Kirin, like, what is this? Like, this is the most broken card ever made.
You make like 2 Dantes and a Beatrice and set 3 Fog Blades, and your opponent goes Pendulum Kirin. And you're like, oh my god.
Just broke my entire deck over like 3 turns. Like, it was unreal. Okay, yeah, so I think that's it for the limitations.
Yeah.
I think it's time to move on to the big ones here. Let's start with summon limit, I suppose. We kind of like talked about it a lot already, I suppose. Maybe we can just kind of skip over it, but I don't think anyone's disappointed at summon limit being banned.
Nope. Might be some voiceless voice or stun Andy.
Yeah, like it's not even like the stun Andes that like make summon limit annoying. It's when you have like meta decks like Snake Eye who get to go first and then just side deck and then okay, I'll just throw in summon limit, I'll throw an anti-spell, and this shuts down like 90% of decks and their side deck or their engine.
Yeah. It's just obnoxious, man. Like the side deck being used as a way to just automatically win the game with flipping 1 card is just stupid. The fact that your opponent needs to be able to deal with your combos and mostly side deck cards that deal with your combos and then you flip up this card and win the game anyways is dumb. Floodgates in general are dumb. We've established this. They are slowly realizing this and hitting a lot of them, and summon limit being one of the most toxic ones that is still around. I'm just a big fan that it's banned, and I don't think we need to talk about it that much more.
I'm just curious about the difference between banning it and limiting it. Like, what is the tipping factor for them to ban it but limit Peekaboo?
Super arbitrary that summon limit is banned. Anti-spell went to 1. Peekaboo is limited. All that. I don't care. I don't ask these questions. I'm just happy they're there. Like I don't care. Like I'll take it.
All right, fair enough.
It doesn't make sense in my opinion, but I'll take it anyways. Whatever.
Yeah, well, we're just happy that we're just happy to be here. You can't limit a card that says limit. Oh, wait, that would have been great if they limited it, right?
Because at some point you ask too many of these questions and they're like, hold on, that does not make sense. We're going to bring it back to 1, and I don't want that to happen. So.
All right, let's talk about the, well, I suppose let's go for the big ones last. Let's save the grand finale. So we got Link Karibo to 1 here. So a ban, sorry. As a Link 1, we are now seeing this gone, which is very interesting. Link
Mhm.
ones, I think, like, I mean, did we talk about it during the Extra Deck podcast? I think we did, right? But that's
We
going to be
touched
next
on
week.
it, yes. So like
Yeah.
this is basically them saying we are listening to House of the Cast and we appreciate the content. Farfa and Josh is what they're saying with this forbidden section.
Cultured employees, I see. Yeah. The banning of Link Creepo, like a lot of people have been going around saying, like, wow, this doesn't do anything. Play Anima, you just play Mirage, right? Like, sure, yeah, you could do that, but at the same time, like, Link Creepo did offer a lot for the deck, I think.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, like, when you look at like the issues with Snake Eye, you have a laundry list of like what the problem cards are. It's like Flamberge, you've got Ash as a one card combo, parts of the extra deck, Princess, and then I feel like then you come down to Link. So I think like the biggest thing that this is saying to us is buy our new cards, play the new deck, and this is as good of a hit as we can really offer right now. Well, I suppose it ties in pretty heavily with like the synchro stuff, but even then,
Yeah.
I don't know how much that really affects it because you can play without the synchros in a sense, right? So I don't know, it's weird. Basically, you know, TL, are you like surprised that we didn't see like Wanted to one or even like Snash to one?
I am surprised. Yes, I am surprised we didn't see that, and I think the ban of Linkuriboh is kind of like a combination of some of the reasons you just touched upon. Like I think it's a combination of Linkuriboh is a very strong Link one, and it is way better than Relinquished Anima for multiple reasons, right? That's why it's been played a lot. This is not the first time that Linkuriboh is seeing play. Obviously, Linkuriboh has been part of countless combo strategies in the past. You know, as far back as in 2018, where you would use Linkuriboh in Goki to complete the extra link over on the left side with just one arrow pointing downwards, right? And that was the easiest way you could get that done, right? It's just like the whole concept of Link ones is pretty powerful. Linkuriboh is one of the most generic and one of the most powerful Link ones. And it is also coincidentally right now very good in Snake Eye. So I think that's a combination of some factors that led to it being banned now. Also, I think it ties in with the fact that they didn't ban Appaloosa, and Linkuriboh is one of the main ways how Snake Eyes protects their Appaloosa. And I think the reason, because we're gonna see they banned some very generic synchros in a second. The reason why I think they didn't ban Appaloosa is that is yet to be reprinted in Rarity Collection 2, and maybe they will think about banning it after. But banning Linkuriboh actually makes the Appaloosa openers a little bit more vulnerable to your Appaloosa being run over, which I think is a little side effect of this ban that is relevant.
So yeah, very good points. But it's interesting you touched upon like Appaloosa specifically, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just wondering if it wasn't because of Snake Eye specifically using Appaloosa, would we have seen the, as I like to call them, the four horsemen of the generic N board being hit? We are at 2 out of 4, by the way, 50% through in one ban list. We've still
All right,
got
say their names.
Masquerena and Appaloosa.
Yes. Say their names. Who's been banned?
Baron DeFleur has now hit the dirt finally, and I think like probably the most surprising one was how long it took this one. Borreload Savage Dragon.
Yeah.
I feel like there were arguments and calls for this guy to be banned a while ago, not just for this ban list. So overall, I don't think. Okay, so I would say like I don't think anyone is upset about this, but that's very wrong.
Some people are.
People will be upset about anything. So one of the arguments is like obviously against it is we don't like generic copy paste combo decks just making the same end board multiple times. Simultaneously, on the other hand, however, when you have like combo-esque decks like something like Pendulum, etc., like all these different various reskinned decks of each other, what do you make? What do you end on? Right? Like you have to rely on your own archetype now, but some rogue decks don't offer that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting, I suppose, right? Because you could argue like these cards should stay around to help those archetypes in some ways, but at the same time, like
no. If they want these archetypes to have a card like that, they should just design them properly and keep them actually within the archetype. Like that's the thing with some of these cards that are now banned. This just happens when they design a card too carelessly. Like that's why Christian lost Halka Fibrax. That's why Noble Knights are lost Isolt, and this is why now Dragon Link or Rockets lose Borreload Savage Dragon. Like, that's unfortunate if you're a player of one of these decks, like if that's your pet deck or anything like that. But that's just on them for not making sure that these cards actually see play in those decks, like specifically.
Yeah, I to some extent I can understand the argument. I think it's incorrect, but I do understand and sympathize with the idea that okay, you have like a combo deck, but it hasn't been given the resources designed for it to have end boards, I suppose. But
I understand the frustration when you have like a really cool deck that just doesn't have anything to end on now. At the same time, you really have to like take a step back and think about, did we really want another deck in the format that just ends on these cards? You know, and I think the answer to that is also unfortunately no. You know, like I'm sorry, but your deck is not something that the game needs right now. Like that's not like only so that you're, I don't know, you're let's say Adamancipator, only so that your Adamancipator deck has an end board. I'm not gonna accept Baron de Fleur in all the meta decks, right? Like that's not worth it.
Give me back 3 Block Dragon. I will end on a DD Crow with Raptite. Okay, I don't care. Like give it to me. I will accept it. You know, I'm just saying.
We will just not give you a Block Dragon at all, and you're gonna end on nothing, and that's also
there's
fine.
Literally no trade offer here. It's actually disgusting. Like, like we got nothing this battle. That's terrible.
You could probably make a Banshee and search a Nemesis flag.
Oh, true. Huh? Yeah, we could put Colossus in here. Yeah, we'll play Cupid Pitch and level 2s. No, actually not wrong. All right, we'll cook. Now, one discussion that I wanted to pull in here that I thought was really interesting is like, okay, now that like the generic Apocalypse Negate cards are getting banned, maybe we'll see Apollousa in a couple of lists.
Mm-hmm.
This like substantially buffs Nibiru, I think, right?
Not only that, but I like these changes are interesting in two ways. Like in the first way that we're going to discuss in a second is obviously a ban list always addresses the current format. Like it has immediate impact on the game, but I think these are bans that might change the game in the long term significantly, because it also portrays like a change in philosophy in their thinking about like finally touching end board monsters. Like this sort of behavior is like something, if they keep doing this in the future, it's going to be very, very interesting to observe what this does to the game, right? Because I've been thinking about this, and it's like, it is super, super hard to like make a combo deck that plays through Nibiru and doesn't get its board completely broken by like a single triple tactics talents. Because even if you can spit out an Apollousa super early, if you can't back up the Apollousa with an Omni Negate, like Talons is just going to take it and negate all your stuff. Right. And I'm saying it's hard to do that, but that's a good thing. Like it's a good thing that like it is getting harder and harder to overextend like that. Right. And so this is, I think, one step potentially. Maybe it's copium, but I think this is a step in a direction that could slow down the game a little bit in the future and take a little bit of pressure off of having to do as much as possible on the first turn. Because if people have to like actually think of like play their turn 1 with turn 3 in mind of like, hey, I have to make a board, but I can't commit too much because my opponent might have Nibiru or my opponent might have Talons and so on and so forth. So I have to keep it a little bit. I have to play a little bit slower than that, keep some resources back in my hand. I think we're going to overall end up with a more enjoyable game, right? Because you have to think about what you commit. And if your opponent then going second is in the same boat, right? You making a weaker board going first is okay if your opponent also can't overextend and kill you immediately, because they might get nibbed or they might get, countered in some way.
I think that's a very idealistic and utopic way to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more cynical in my observation of this, and I think one of the biggest issues is over the last few years we've seen this arms race that we've talked about many times between combo and anti-combo cards. And I think like taking such a drastic change and immediately banning Baron and Savage now, you're going to have a substantial buff to Nibiru. Thrust and Talents become substantially more powerful. All of these like generic board breakers evenly matched, like, for example, as well. Like there's so many just like cards that indirectly are now buffed because these things have been banned. And it feels like now they have to sort of reverse engineer the ban list or the game even over the next few sets and just go backwards with how they've designed a lot of these cards, right? Because now we could be in a situation where these cards do come into prominence and end up being like super powerful, crazy broken staples, or maybe even main deck cards, right? With the with all of these generic omnis banned. So it's
Yeah,
a
but what's the
very
problem with that?
well, that's the thing, right? You could view it as not a problem, but it's just a lot of the work involved with fixing that in of itself. Like, is do you trust Konami to have the authority and power to do that, right? Like, are you not apprehensive that they're gonna get it wrong over the next few lists potentially? You never know, right?
You do never know. At the same time, I don't really see. I'm not that scared of what you're portraying, because if those cards become very very powerful, like I can only speak from my perspective. Like I wouldn't play one of these decks that just loses to one of these cards at the moment, right? Like I just wouldn't be playing a deck that just auto loses to Nibiru every time, or loses or gets its entire board broken by one talents and doesn't have a follow-up plan.
Okay, sure, but like you can say I won't be playing those decks, but then that begs the question: why do they even exist? Why are we making so much time and effort in designing like these new light sworns, for example,
Yes,
right? Like,
the this is always the case. I mean, yeah, this is a fundamental change, and this is going to, I guess, make certain cards irrelevant that they have, or certain archetypes irrelevant, like what happened to an extent to certain decks like Hero or Salamangreat, right? What you're saying is like, okay, now a lot more decks are in that exact position, right? Where like they're the meme of like, hey, this deck dies to Nibiru, right?
yeah,
And
now we've just like invalidated so many archetypes and so many potential future decks,
yeah,
right?
but it's a trade-off, right? Like you are like these decks.
Trade
I
off is
mean,
like half of the decks of the game. Come on.
it's not really a trade-off though. Nibiru was already in every single deck. Like, what are you saying? Those decks were not viable before.
No, yeah, exactly, right. But now they're even worse,
Yeah,
and
but
they will be
who
like for the
Megalol
foreseeable
cares? Like,
future.
they were not viable anyway.
I don't know. Again, like I think we're very divided on this because like you generally don't like those decks, right? Whereas I generally
What?
lean towards
I
them.
like Salamangreat.
Well, okay, sure. Like in terms of like combo deck versus non-combo deck, right? Like you've always sort of preferred like mid-range. I've always
Yeah,
enjoyed like the higher ceiling decks, right?
yeah.
So I think like there's always going to be like a clashing of an opinion on this thing, and I suppose like trying to take both perspectives into account. You could look at it as to summarize. You could look at it as one way as who Megalol cares, we're fixing the game. But on the other hand, you could see it as, well, okay, here's a very definitive and distinctive playstyle of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. They've all just been like completely, um, not power crept, but I suppose just like kind of just destroyed in a single ban list almost. Right, especially keep Nibiru and Talents around, right? I think it really
Mhm.
is just like a split decision between the player base, right? Some people really love high ceiling, some people don't like high ceiling, and I guess it
I
maybe just
mean,
depends on where you fall on that line.
I mean, but it's not like that sort of playstyle can't exist anymore in Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like they can still very well make combo decks that still play even if they get Nibiru, right? We've had plenty of
So do you
examples
think
of
we
that
end up in the
recently.
same situation as before, though, right? Because from before, where we've talked about this, where we've said, right, okay, well, I want to play a combo deck. Does my combo deck beat Nibiru? Does it beat Talents? Now we have to design and print cards that beat Nibiru and beat
Oh,
Talents, etc.
we
Right?
might. We
And now
might.
we're
Like, that's the
back to
thing.
square
Like,
one.
this is why I said this is one step. This does not like solve the problem. This does not yet make Yu-Gi-Oh a slower game, or takes a lot of pressure off of the first turn, or makes going second balanced now. This doesn't do that. This is one step. This is two cards. And out of these two cards, arguably Baron is like 95% of the argument. Savage just like only barely shows up and got kind of like drive-by shot. The thing is, like, I mean, Savage like arguably didn't need to be banned. It's just because it happens to be alongside Baron in the in Snake Eyes at the moment. But overall, I think Savage is much less generic than Baron.
I think it
But
depends on the deck, right? Because like for the longest period, Savage was more relevant than Baron because it was like easier to summon, and like you relied on things like Halka more, so you had the link fodder. It just I guess it's not a very major point, but I guess it just kind of depends sometimes, right?
Yeah.
on
Okay.
the archetype itself.
I think Baron is a much more generic card, but yeah.
Yeah, 10 synchro is weird. It is yeah, it's a lot. But by the way, just saying, like, one other thing as well that, you know, going back to that discussion about like them just killing certain decks, right? Like Vanadium actually just straight up like doesn't exist anymore, for example, I feel, right?
Good.
I mean, there's no discussion, right? Like that's the it is what it
Yeah,
is.
no, case in point. W
Yeah.
list.
W list. Well, I've always been sympathetic to my my combo strategies, so I'm upset about it. It's really funny because like it's the peak of hypocrisy. Because when you play against these decks, like, oh my god, hurry up, I'm so bored.
Mhm.
But playing with it, you know,
Yeah, just
you
don't
know,
play
give
him
me a
then. You won't miss him if you don't play him.
Didn't Jess post on Twitter like a first turn plant combo being performed in like sub 1 minute 30? Like the problem is like the
That's
players, not the decks.
nah,
The
that's
players
maniac
suck at their
behavior.
decks.
That's crazy
Say that
behavior.
again? Okay. All right. I think that's it for I suppose all the hits and stuff. I guess that we were talking about. Was there anything here missing? I suppose.
Well, we're missing Snake Eye hits. That's what we're missing, I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, missing in the sense of
No,
things
no,
we
no.
haven't
We've talked about
about.
every hit, and I think we can just get to a like conclusion of like, you know, how like I don't know. I guess we can rate the ban list out of 10 and just say what we expected to do and maybe what we were missing on it. I think the biggest thing for me, why this is like I'm happy about most of these changes. I think for me it's like a 7 or 8 out of 10. Because
I thought
I'm
it'd be higher
missing
for you, actually. Okay.
there's still stuff that I was really hoping for, and one of them is Sanctifier or Gimmick Puppet. That is a big
true.
deal for me.
Oh, dude, sorry to interrupt. Do you know the freaking meme cycle that like gets posted every single ban list? You know, it's like branded unhit, branded best deck, branded
Yeah.
fusion lose to Ash Blossom, branded
Yeah.
not best deck. Like it's the cycle every single list for the last 2 years.
It's just annoying because I don't actually have an issue with branded. It's just like the Gimmick Puppet lock shouldn't be a thing. Besides the fact that I'm also kind of bored of playing against branded for 2 years, but I guess that's a me problem. But I think Gimmick Puppet should just be gone, and then I would have been fine with it. So that's kind of an annoyance for me. And then Shifter not being on there is like a -1 point for me, and the Colossus and Protoss limits are also a little bit of a no. And then I think it would have still been good to. I know that their argument was probably, hey, we don't want to touch the Snake Eye cards yet because a lot of people spent a lot of money on them. But I think a limit or semi-limit to Wanted or a limit or semi-limit to Snake Eye Ash wouldn't really have been that bad. Because, I mean, at this point, Wanted and Snake Eye Ash are like 6 months old. They're not even from the newest set. And I think that would have done... it would have gone a long way alongside with these extra deck bans. But yeah, that's basically my take. I'm really happy about the Baron and Savage ban. I'm really happy about the Floodgate hits. I'm happy about most of the things that came off the list. So for me, overall, it's definitely a positive ban list, and I have high hopes in the effects it could have on the game, even though it's probably not enough yet to make the game more interactive and a little bit slower than what it is. But I think it's a good step. I like it.
Let's take some quick fire questions from the Twitch chat. I'll try and rack them up here.
No,
So
give me a rating.
questions
Give me a
in
rating out of 10.
In the meantime. Rating, it's so I'm like biased in the sense that anytime there's like a big ban list, like I'm just irrespective of what is even going on. Like I just love like big ban lists, like huge shifts in the game and stuff like that.
Okay.
Seem crazy, but at the same time, it's like this doesn't actually do that much. This is kind of like a long-term ban list rather than a short-term one, because I don't think this changes the metagame whatsoever, in my opinion. I think Snake Eye
Fire
is
King
still
Snake Eye. Fire King Snake Eye loses 1 Linkuriboh. Like it's probably still like. I guess it does change it in the way that Pure Snake Eye was the best deck.
I don't even think Pure is anywhere near like terrible or unplayable or whatever.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
Pure is very good.
But it's more manageable. It's like whenever you think of what they will end on now, it's like, okay, I can finally resolve if I have a card that I think is good against Snake Eyes, I can actually resolve it. You know, like if you If you think like, okay, Soul Release is cool to mess with their graveyard, or I think I can beat them after evenly, well, now you actually can try that. Like, it's not like, oh, well, this card that I've sided in specifically for this matchup gets negated anyways, right?
Yeah, I think the regional I just went to, I think Jordan said like he didn't even like perform a synchro summon like round 5 or something, and there won. So
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe there's still like link climbing fodder, and like maybe we'll see like some go seconds strategies as well potentially going forward. We'll see. In terms of a rating, I think it's definitely above average. But I would have liked to have seen. I don't know. Actually, yeah, I think it's a good list. I think overall, I'd say it's a solid 8 list. I think maybe even 8.5 bumped up with the fact that Kirin is
You've
back.
been talking way more negatively than that. I thought you were going to give it like a 5 or a 6. You really don't make sense.
It was a good list, honestly. I just I'm a little savage that I'm a little sad that Savage is gone, I suppose. Baron I think had to go, but I think keeping at one generic negate. Okay, so here's the thing. I want to see Apollousa banned, and I would be okay with like Savage. I think Apollousa is the biggest egregious extra deck problem ever, right? I think that card is a major issue.
Ever.
Okay, maybe not ever, but you know, I think Apollousa is like a huge problem. So I would have liked to have seen that, but for obviously all of the reasons we've talked about, that is not going to happen anytime soon anyway.
Yeah.
But I think Apollousa is a huge issue. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm happy.
Okay.
Oh, Fenrir! Where's Fenrir? I can't believe it took this long to rant about it. Holy crap. Where the hell is Fenrir, man? Oh my
god.
All right, let's sign off now. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hardcast. We'll be back with our regularly scheduled podcasting and stuff from now on. Apologies we didn't get a episode squeezed in. We were both just extremely busy with the cat sitting and the house move. Just so many things happening all at once. I think next episode we'll probably have to do a Raleigh episode right next week.
That sounds. I mean, that's also considering it's the first major event with this ban list. I think it makes a lot of sense if we like recap it a little bit. I'm not quite sure. I thought maybe it would be smart if we uploaded this one before the weekend, because it's like obviously a very hot topic right now. Maybe it's smart if we throw it out a little bit earlier. So I mean, I guess you guys will know when you listen to this whether we uploaded it early or not. But
we'll find out soon.
There's definitely going to be an episode the week after YCS Raleigh, and we're probably going to be discussing the metagame, and hopefully it's not just going to be Fire King Snake Eye, and we don't have anything to report on the next one, but I'm sure we're going to see some innovation and some interesting stuff to talk about. Copium.
Yep. Lots over the next couple of weeks. Surely it won't just be a Snake Eye rehashing of the discussions again. All right. Yes. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Peace out. See you in the next episode. And remember to unlock the block.